It's hard to imagine all the circumstances that transpire over a lifetime. And when you take a church that will celebrate its 112th birthday this fall, most of us were not here for all 112 years. The church was founded in 1909, about the same time that Tomball itself was incorporated as a city in Texas. A few people, primarily farmers at that point in time, gathered together. They literally built a temporary facility made out of wood branches, called back then, still technically defined as an arbor, but we don't do that very much these days. And they met underneath that temporary facility before they had the ability to build themselves a white clapboard beginning in 1914. As the community was growing, it was these farmers, it was mostly farmland, they gathered for the purpose of worshiping, studying the scripture, and reaching their community with the message of hope that was found in Jesus Christ. The community made a seismic shift, literally in the 1940s, when the farming community suddenly found the topography of the area, the landscape of the area, spiderwebbed with oil pipes. The oil boom was so significant in this region that when that took place, they didn't even take the time to bury the lines. And so most of the land all around the Tomball region has oil lines that were originally on top of it. They were on top of the surface. Many of them are now subsurface just because over the last 80 so years, they've sunk down into the ground and they've remained in place. But it was a huge shift. That's when this church decided to build a new building, and they built the 1941-1949 chapel that is to the east of our building, to the west of our building, to my right, your left. Anyway, you guys get the idea. It's someplace over there. And they built that facility, two-story building, balconies, where they began to worship and live out their lives in a new community that was experiencing radical changes during that whole oil boom period of time. And then around the 1980s, the whole area began to really radically shift and change. Tomball was becoming more of a part of Houston. Urbanization was starting to happen. We still had dirt roads and we still had some small country lanes, but the church was growing, things were happening, and in that period of history, this building that we're sitting in today, that you're watching live stream from, was built as another, same purpose never changed. To gather God's people together in significant relationships, to worship that holy and mighty God, which we'll do this morning, to study the scriptures so that it would guide our lives and our decisions, and then leave out to share and reach a community that was thriving and growing and changing at that point in time, becoming a place of commerce, becoming a place where people would gather. And here we are. I don't know why. I don't think there's a particular reason to the cycles, but about every 2 generations in our history, there's been significant change. In the late 1990s, early 2000, the church began to realize, looking at demographics, projecting into the future, that the area was going to shift. Again, the center of town was going to shift west, and that the major transportation arteries were going to take us further west, and that the area was changing, where it had been a farmland and then an oil town and then a place of some industry and commerce and gathering. It had become an increasingly residential area. In 2021, residents are the primary activity in the Tomball region. And I'm not exaggerating. This is not preacher talk at this point. But literally, every month, thousands of houses are being built in this region. Tens of thousands, projected over a decade, hundreds of thousands of young families, because it's a great place to live. All of our school districts in our region, every school our kids go to, is premier and top school districts in the state of Texas. And these young families are making the decision, this is where they want to set their roots. This is what they want to call home. This is the place where they want to raise their children. In a visionary moment in 2002, actually 20 years ago exactly, and so in 2001, this church purchased 32 acres of land to transition at some point in time to that land to be more strategically accessible, to do, honestly, the exact same thing the church has been doing for over a century. Gather together in friendship and relationship. Gather for the purpose of worship. gather for the purpose of studying scriptures, and always depart for the purpose of sharing the hope that is found in Jesus. The trigger for that last transition has always been, since I've been here, the sale of this property. This property has been listed for over 20 years. This property has had a few offers along the way, but not until last week did an offer of significant and apparent divine origin take place. We have received an offer as a congregation for $4 million in cash for our current campus. That will allow us to transition to the temporary facilities we have been looking at and contemplating, and eventually, after being itinerary for a short period of time, 2, maybe 3 years at most, build out and construct the new facilities that reflect the coming needs of this community. Facilities that are downsized and streamlined, that are cost-effective and energy efficient. That last one's really big to our finance team and to our maintenance staff. We will move from 34 air conditioners. I think some of them were original to 1949. We will move from that to 1 chiller tower. The finance team has over the years studied this, and they've projected again as recently as yesterday the cost savings involved in this. And it's built in the relevant fashion because every generation changes. And these young families that are literally flooding and inundating, they're sitting next to you in this moment, and they're in their neighborhoods this moment as we're worshiping this morning. These young families have new needs and new priorities. It doesn't change the core of who we are, but we change the methods in order to share the same thing we've been doing for 112 years, the hope that is found in Jesus Christ. And that opportunity has come. The church has already made the decision that's been made multiple times over the last 2 decades. The decision to relocate has already been made. It's already in place. We will ask the membership on Sunday, March 14th, 2 weeks from today, in a business conference. We will ask the membership to authorize our trustees to sign all legal papers, accepting the $4 million cash offer and details that were sent out to most of you on Thursday. If you're not getting information, please call the office tomorrow, email the office, make sure we have the email you want to receive information at so that you can get updates on a regular basis. Follow us if you're not already doing it on social media, on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, any social media. Follow us on those things so that you can get updates. We will accept that offer. We will sell this property. We will move into temporary facilities for the next 2 years, 3 years at most, and we will begin the construction phase. We'll begin architectural renderings. So all the multitude of questions we honestly don't have answers for. I don't know what color the carpet's going to be. Although I've heard a pretty strong opinion that maybe something other than green. But, I'm thinking about taking a swatch with me. Find some out-of-the-way place, where nobody's looking, and cut a piece out and take it with me. All this will take place. We'll authorize the trustees. Trustees operate legally on our behalf as a congregation because we're congregation-led. We'll be getting tons of more information out. Master plan sketches have been done. We just completed, actually, we're like in the last 5% of finishing all the civil engineering on the new property, geotech, environmental, initial traffic studies, and things like that have to be done. The next phase, whether the property is sold or not, was the architectural phase, and we will be beginning that. We were going to do it anyway. Your generous gifts to our building fund have enabled us to be working the entire time. It enabled us to put in the recreational facility, the pavilion, which, by the way, I might as well just tell you right now, because we're only 4 weeks away from Easter. And we are going to have services this Easter, not just online, but in person. We're going to do all services this Easter on the new property. So there'll be outdoor services. The pavilion covers us well. We'll just start with a sunrise service, and then we've got another service, I think, at 10:30. You'll get all the details. But we're going to worship on our property this Easter. We're going to worship out there. We were going to do that before we knew the sale came in, but now it's just even sweeter because it feels so providential. We had a meeting with leadership yesterday that just went great, and people were excited. We're excited. Many people have been waiting for this. Some of us inherited this dream. Others were founders of this dream. But all of us are together in this dream. And I don't know what's going to happen. If it's a 40-year cycle, 1909, and then later in the 1940s, and then later in the 1980s, and now in 2021, I don't know exactly what's going to happen in 2060. I don't actually plan on being here. But I know this church, and I know its heart. It will lay a foundation that lets the people, if Jesus hasn't come back in 2061, there will be 2 more generations that have come and gone, and they will see the needs of their community at that point in time, and they will do what's necessary to reach people for Christ.